We're going to be learning now about the concept of domain and range. And this is a concept that we address here in algebra, and it comes up again and again in higher level math. So the basic definition is this. Domain is all the x values, and range is all the y values. Okay, now there's two rules. There's two rules when we are working with domain and range. The first is that we list the numbers in order from least to greatest. And the second is that we don't repeat numbers. Okay, so let's say we have two 2's. We don't write 2 twice. We just write it once. Okay, so let me show you an example of this. So here's example number 1. We're going to see this in both graphs and in sets of points. We can also do domain and range from tables and different things, but pretty much if you can do it with points, you can kind of do it with everything else. Okay, so here is a set of points. Okay, so first I want the domain. Now remember, the domain is all the x values. So the domain, look, I'm going to single underline this. I'm going to underline all the x values. Okay, the domain is all of those values. Here's how I list it. I write these funny little bracket things like this. Okay, they're like parentheses with a little point in it. Okay, now I'm going to list these x values, 3, -2, 0, -5. I'm going to list them in order from least to greatest and with no repeats. So in this case, I actually don't have any repeats. I'm going to list them in order from least to greatest. So what's the smallest number here? The smallest number is actually -5, right? Because -5 and -2 are both negative, so they're definitely smaller than 0 and positive. And the bigger a negative number seems, it's actually smaller, right? Okay, so the first one's -5, and look, you can even put a little mark to show that you already did it, right? Have an organized system so that you can see. Okay, next is -2, next is 0, and next is 3. Okay, and then you close it with another little pointy bracket like that. So that's my domain. Now my range, okay, I'm going to double underline this one. It's all my y values. So here are my y values. Here, 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 and here. So again, little pointy brackets. And I'm going to list them in order from least to greatest with no repeats. So my values are 7, 4, 4, and 3. So I'm not going to repeat the 4. And my smallest value is 3, so I'm going to do 3, and then 4, right? I'm not going to list the repeats, and then 7. That's my range. Okay. The other way that you might see this is on a graph. Okay, now we're going to draw a pretty simple graph since we're just doing it here on paper. Okay, so go ahead and just sketch. Look, I'm going 4 lines. Okay, you can make it about the same this. So look, this is going to be 1 and 2. This is -1 and -2. Okay, this is -1, -2. Right, you can even label it if you want. But just go ahead and give yourself a decent graph like this. Okay, you can feel free to label it like this, make your life a little easier. Okay, now I'm just going to put 3 points on this graph. I'm going to put 1 right here. I'm going to put 1 right here. And I'm going to put 1 right here. Okay, now one option I could do is I could just take these 3 points and I could list them out and make it look like this and then get the x and y values from there. That would totally work, right? I could just say, okay, this is -2, 1, this is -1, -2, and this is 2, 1, and I could totally just do that. That would be totally fine. That works. I can also just pull them right off the graph though. Now if I want the domain off the graph, what I'm going to do, remember I want them from least to greatest, so the domain is the x values, right, these. So notice from least to greatest, I would start at the left. So what I would do is I would look from left to right, and what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the x-axis, which is this line. So here, for example, in this problem, I would start on the left, and I would say, okay, let's see, I hit this point first. Okay, so what's the x value there? The x value is this value, right? Here's the x-axis. The x value of this point is -2. And then I would keep going, right, because I'm going from left to right. what's the x value of this point? -1. And then I would keep going from left to right. Oh, I hit here. What's the x value of this point? It would be 2. Okay, and notice that's the same domain I would have gotten if I had pulled it from these points. Okay, now for range, I can also pull the range right off the graph. Okay, now from this one, if I want to go least to greatest, I would go from bottom to top. Right, and for this, I'm looking, if I want the y values, I'm looking at the y-axis. That's this line. Okay, so like for example, I would start here at the bottom, and if I want the y value of this point, I would say, okay, where does it hit the y-axis, right? Here's the y-axis. Oh, it hits at -2. And I would go up, and I see that these points actually have the same y value, and they're both at a y value of 1. So in this case, my range would just be these two values. And notice that I would have gotten the same thing had I looked at these points. My y values are here, and I would have listed them with no repeats.